Dans les collines où le temps serpente, sous le ciel bleu, la brise nous tente. Millau se dévoile, perle du midi, où l'histoire et la nature se lient. Oh Millau, dans tes bras on se perd, oh majestueux, cœur de lumière au creux de tes vallées. Le monde s'éveille, Millau, douce mélodie des merveilles.
Do we think this thing works? Yes, I think it might be working. Hello and good morning everybody, and welcome back to Millau. For the first time in so long. It's been a while, it's been such a long time, but I'm happy to be back, and today I'm excited. I want to build a TGV, or a high-speed rail line that goes through this whole map. And basically, I've been like thinking about this for like several months, how to design it, where to place it. I've had lots of build ideas for this next episode, I should say, but the TGV was one of them. But I didn't decide on it until like very recently, like maybe even today, to actually do it. But I have tested a few things. I've played around with ideas, and the route, the alignment of the tracks. It's been quite a process, and eventually I want the train station to be here. So we are going to have a main train station for the town, like the slow speed train, the regular air quotes train station around this location here, which will see traffic on the train line that follows the river. But the high speed train line will have a much smoother alignment, like much larger radius curves, like very little grade and slope. So it kind of needs to be placed outside. Another reason for it being like kind of outside of the town itself here is that this would have been built much more recently. Like this would have been built, I mean, this train station maybe was built in the 1800s, or like it was placed here. Like the destiny of this place to become a train station was set a long time ago. Well, this here, the new train station, would have been decided in like oh my god, maybe today. Maybe somebody decides on this like today, and the construction of it is like maybe 30 years in the future or something. I'll pull up a map I've made of like how I imagine this high-speed train route to look, because it's not really supposed to serve Millau. Millau is a pretty small town. It will be a pretty small town. I mean, it will be a magnificent town, but it will be a small town once it all is said and done. So the main reason why we get a high-speed train station here at all is because it's on the route that goes through this region. So I'd imagine this would be a high-speed train line that goes like all the way from Paris in the north, through Clermont-Ferrand to maybe Montpellier and even Barcelona in Spain. Like it goes straight down the center of France to the Spanish coast, the Spanish Mediterranean coast. So that's that. I mean, I'm just gonna start building it. I'm so excited to be back in Millau and finally building something and recording something for you guys. So yeah, I'll see you in the time lapse. And I am already back. I have written down so many different notes on pieces of paper of things I can talk about in this episode or in this time lapse. I don't know if I'll be able to talk about everything. It's just way too much. But I'll try to keep them when they are, or like sort of mention them, all these points, these talking points, when it's most appropriate. The first thing I'm doing for this build, I should talk about instead, is I'm placing down one of the stations from Bad Peanuts station pack. And I am using the same track, the station track, to extend it. And then using node controller to basically remove the nodes. This gives you like the illusion of a longer train station, which I think is very important for specifically these high-speed train stations. The default vanilla train stations are a little bit short. They're obviously long enough for the trains, but I wanted a longer station, like at least the visuals of it. We'll have to do some TMP stuff to make it work, but yeah. And I'm also doing the outside connections here. Like, you might think this is a very weird way to build a high-speed train line, but the way I'm going to be building this is basically using network multi-tool, which you can see me starting to do right now. I realized while doing this, I should probably do a tutorial, like my tutorial on network multi-tool, because there's so many features that people don't really know about this mod, especially this feature that I'm using, the create connection mode, and just adding circles to all over the place. It's a hugely powerful feature, I think. Hugely powerful, I don't know what to say, but basically I'm moving these things around. I'm trying to adjust it as good as I can for the existing terrain, trying to follow it so that we can minimize minimize extremely tall viaducts and extremely deep tunnels. I don't know, like trying to keep it as cheap as possible, like if that makes any sense. Like in my imagination, or like in real life as well, like the cheapest way to make something is if you don't have to do a lot of terraforming. Like if you can do it at ground level, that's great. But basically trying to stay as close to the terrain as possible for most of it. But we also have to consider, like, these high-speed trains have a very large required turning radius to allow for higher top speeds, and also the slope, the grading. So we're trying to, like, we will undoubtedly need to have like a lot of tunnels and viaducts basically, but that also adds to the aesthetic. Like, you can look up these infrastructure, these marvels of infrastructure in real life, and it doesn't matter if you're in Japan or China, or France or Germany or Spain, other places with a lot of high-speed train infrastructure. You have a lot of tunnels, you have a lot of viaducts and bridges. So I was excited to emulate emulate that, I guess. I think I've read somewhere that the grade or the slope should be less than 3%, and I think I stay true to that for most of this line. But I do, let's say, I do cheat a little bit with the radius, with the turning radius. There's one turn that's 1 kilometer radius. It has a 1 kilometer radius near the train station, basically in the center of the map. In real life, I think I should have aimed for a 2 to 3 kilometer radius if I want these high-speed trains to be able to travel through at a higher, or like a near top speed. So the top speed would be around 300 kilometers per hour, maybe even 320, from what I have gathered about the TGV. The TGV is, of course, it's a French acronym for train à grande vitesse, which kind of means train high speed. And the infrastructure itself is called LGV, or ligne à grande vitesse, I believe. I could be wrong. My pronunciation probably is garbage as usual, but yeah, there we got that out of the way. You can see I have now connected. I've basically used network multi-tool to create the whole connection to the train station from the map edge. It's super useful. I'll have to go through this in a separate tutorial, I think, because there's so much going on with that mod that I just realized that needs to be shown in a special showcase. But just know that it's super useful, and if you somehow understand what I'm doing here and get the idea to try it yourself, like, just go ahead. I encourage you to play around with it, but this is not a very good tutorial for that mod or that feature, unfortunately. Oh yeah, I'm playing around with a few different... I haven't quite decided where this high-speed rail connection is going to be to the map edge. So I play around with 2 options. One where it sort of goes to the west map edge, but eventually I settle on having it go kind of into a tunnel heading towards the south map edge instead. Yeah, I think actually the idea of a network multi-tool tutorial would be really nice, because I was talking to my friend Ami Polizeifunk today, and I just realized like there's so much I can tell you about how to use that mod that would be like super useful that most people don't know about. And also it was a while since I did a tutorial video like that. As I said, this is not going to be a very good tutorial video because it's way too fast. That would be a live play kind of a tutorial. So yeah, there will be a live play at the end of this video as well, because I won't show like the entire build, but I want to show I want to like recap everything I did like touching up and like, you know, like cleaning up, detailing and all that stuff around that doesn't really fit into it doesn't really fit that well into a time lapse, let's say. Yeah, I also before I forget about it, what's your opinion about the intro song? I might have gone and created a AI generated theme song for Millau, and it's kind of a little, I regret to admit it, but I kind of like it. It's very weird, but yeah. Let me know what you think about it. Also, let me know what you think about the network multi-tool tutorial. That would be very nice. I think it would be a nice idea, but let me know what you think about it. Here you can see me doing that outside connection thing, by the way. I connect it to the outside, and then I just move it in so that I can have the actual connection be in a tunnel entrance. I'm not entirely sure it's gonna stay like this forever. I might change this eventually back. I might change the entire alignment on this part of the map so that it actually does go to the west edge. I'm not entirely decided. Like, these things might change, but you know what? For now, this is the best that I think. The best that I don't know. It's my best attempt so far, I think. That's not right. Like, what I mean is, it's what I want right now. And from experience, I know that what I want right now is not always the same as what I want in like 2 weeks. So maybe. Who knows? Maybe this will change. But here I go and delete it, and yeah. We do get a little bit of a cleaner viaduct that doesn't really take up as much space in the valley, so... I am also kind of heavily... Even though I am using the network multi-tool connect feature to create the curves, I'm going back in and adjusting the heights quite extensively so that it follows the terrain a bit better, because you can't really get that using just the connect tool. It will connect at a continuous slope from the 2 endpoints, which will create 2 tall viaducts and 2 deep cuts into the terrain. So, but like the combination of the features of network multi-tool is really the big game changer for making builds like this. I mean, I'm not saying you can't do this. You could do everything here without this mod. It's just that this mod is so good that you probably want to use it. And here we're back playing around with the station connections again, and I'm upgrading them back, and I'm playing around with maybe using the elevated version of the bypass track. But eventually I do believe I settle for the ground version. It's basically using the same kind of a track that the station has built in natively. And I use a node controller this time to just make the node nodeless. I don't want to extend the station track, because if I extend the station track too far, it's going to break the station, unfortunately. Even though I could do that, I prefer doing it this way. It will require us to use like TMPE to force the trains to stay in their lanes or stay on their tracks. Otherwise, we will be doing funky switching. It's not the perfect solution, to be honest, but I think it's the best solution for this kind of a build. I think these stations by Bad Peanut as well are really good for the high-speed train aesthetic, like especially the TGV style. A lot of these stations for the TGV are actually not inside of the cities or like inside of urban areas. They are often the time like just in the countryside or like located outside of population centers. And that's basically, as far as I would understand it, like it's because these things were built recently. They were built in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. There wasn't like the option to go and just expropriate and they just bulldoze your way through the town to get these tracks in. So a lot of the time the stations are outside of the cities. You can look up examples. For example, Lyon comes to mind, where the TGV station is actually co-located at the airport, international airport. That doesn't mean that TGV trains can't go on old or like slower infrastructure, go to the downtown central stations. It just means that like trains that are on a longer distance that are traveling through might probably stop at the dedicated TGV station instead. This is another thing that you can see in plenty of places like Japan and China and Germany. It's not just France. I did briefly mention it, but the station here is kind of not supposed to be a station. Like, Millau is not big enough to have its own TGV line. The reason why it's here is because this is a line that's going through the region, and this station is meant to serve the larger region around Millau, not just this town. It's not been routed here for the city. That's what I'm trying to say. You can also see this a lot of the times. A lot of times these stations would be like interchange stations with local train services and you know, like large park and ride facilities. So I want to kind of do something like that as well. I think we will have eventually trams going and connecting up the two stations, because there will be a more regular train central station down in the valley, and I think we might have a tram service that connects the two. So a bit excited for that. We'll see when that happens though. And here I am back working at the station and trying to get the tunnel entrance, because on one side the tracks basically go onto a viaduct and a large curve, which is a bit of a sharp curve actually. It's a bit of a too sharp curve for the highest speeds, but on the other side here it goes directly into a tunnel. And I didn't really talk about this, but I did this on the other, like on the map edge as well. I am using a sort of hybrid tunnel entrance thing. I did a video about making custom tunnel entrances a long time ago, but I'm using a simpler approach here, where I'm just using one of the roads and removing the street lamps from it and just stacking it on top of the train tunnel entrance. This lets me use like node controller on that tunnel entrance and make it look a little bit prettier. These roads that I'm using, they have like an arched shape above them, which I think looks much better than the very much boxy square tunnel entrance that you get by default. I thought that I would show that right now, but I am not. I'm proceeding to upgrading the tracks that we created through the large Larsac plateau. But we'll get back to that. We'll see it in a bit. Yeah, I think now is when I start playing around with the tunnel entrances. So basically overlapping two different networks and stacking them lets me have one as the functional track, the functional tunnel entrance, or in this case it's the functional map edge, and one will be the aesthetic one that I can sort of adjust. And here you can see the arch shape. Yay, finally. I'm only like a minute or so off from what I'm doing. This is going to be very tricky to follow. I'm impressed if you are able to follow along with my rambling, my incoherent ramblings about this game. I promise I'll be a little bit more on point in the live play at the end. So if you can't deal with this, just skip forward to that part, and hopefully things will make a lot more sense. I'll try to go through the techniques I used a little bit in that part as well. I believe this is also about the time where I start using IMT, or at least in a little bit, because the ground tracks, and especially these switches and where the track transitions into a tunnel, they have this default train track mesh. And also, I just realized I've been using the high-speed viaduct track for the entire high-speed rail line. I should have mentioned that like the first thing in the video. This is part of Armesto's Bridges and Piers content creator pack. And the reason why I'm using that's a huge thing. Huge ping? Hello. The reason why I'm using that is because it's distinctly different from the regular train tracks. So we have two types of train tracks on the map, and it's very clear to see which one is the high speed and which is the regular speed, air quotes. And here I'm actually using, I'm coming to the IMT part. I'm using IMT to sort of create fake sleepers to overlap the existing tracks so that it better matches these ones by Armesto. I think this is a very neat trick. I have another video that sort of goes through the basics of this way back. The asset I'm using to create these sleepers is actually the shopping cart, which a friend of mine showed me a long time ago. Shout out to New Agent for finding this asset, perfect asset for it. It's great, it's perfect. You can recolor them using IMT, you can rescale them, you can sink them into the ground, and yeah, all of these sleepers are shopping cart shelters, basically, vanilla asset. And here I'm just using the TMP to connect the tracks so that they don't do too crazy stuff. I do end up using TMP a little bit to try to change the speed limits as well, but I think the speed limits are a little bit trickier because I seem to have found some kind of bug where trains won't go full speed in tunnels. They will go full speed they will go pretty fast, I would say, when we're not in tunnels, but they seem to slow down every time they enter the tunnel. Interesting issue, but yeah. Yeah, so now, yep. Important to mention, I'm using Armesto's Bridges and Piers railway tracks for most of this network. I think it's very good. Specifically the viaducts look amazing. I'll talk and show more about the IMT tricks as well in the live play. Yeah, this live play might turn out to be longer than the actual time lapse. I wasn't planning on that, but yeah, I'm not really. I realize maybe 400% sped up is a little bit too fast for what I'm trying to show here, so I'm sorry about that, guys. And here comes the other tunnel entrance on near the station, basically. I did struggle a little bit with this one with the node control. It doesn't seem to really play nice, but eventually I get it to work. But I cut out a lot of me testing or trying it or struggling with it because I think I went on like this for a few minutes, to be honest. And I just had to copy paste it, replace it, the whole thing, so, and eventually it would work. And now I'm moving on to the train station itself. I'm not really gonna show that much of train station building. I do end up placing some buildings around here, but this time-lapse will mostly show me doing a few parking lots, like really emphasizing this is not the central station by any means or any part of it. It's basically a park and ride station, if you will, so we'll be doing parking lots. Yes, and I'm also setting up the train tracks, and we can see what happens. instantly when we create the line. The trains will spawn and do funky stuff. So we set up the TMP stuff, the lane connectors I'm using here. It's the safest way to make sure they stay in their lanes. I really like this bypass train station for the TGV line because we have the bypass tracks in the center, which basically means we can have 2 train lines. We can have one express line that doesn't even stop at the station, just goes through the map at full speed, and one train line that actually stops. I do end up using different speed limits, which is something you can do in TMP for the different tracks. So the inner tracks where trains bypass have an unlimited or high speed limit, while the outer tracks where trains actually stop on the platforms, you have a lower speed limit, so that it kind of becomes a little bit more realistic that way. I should also talk a little bit about the trains I'm using. I'm setting this up exclusively with the classic retro-looking, probably 1980s or like 1990s TGV train sets. This is because I have this thing where I only use vanilla assets, and technically these are vanilla assets because they were included in the Vehicles of the World content creator pack by the Squiggle House, and so I'm very excited to use them. They are very fitting, even though they are maybe a little bit old school. Here you can see me placing a bunch of apartment buildings, and you're probably wondering, why did I do that? This is a very, very, very important part of building the train station. I need to check that it actually is working, because I don't trust this until I can see people getting off the train, getting on the train, and basically interacting with it. So the way I try to force that is I place like these residential conglomerate, to quote Road Time, and basically see if they spawn any people taking the train. And eventually I do find, yeah, let's go. Yeah, we found a few people taking the train, and that means, you know, that means it works, so I can delete them again. Or at least I'm happy with the function. It's always good to do tests like this, because otherwise you might think something is actually working and connecting, but the pathfinding is so broken that you won't get any passengers at all. So I recommend testing these things extensively, I suppose. I don't know. Maybe finally it's time for those parking lots I promised a while back. I would imagine. Eventually, maybe a roundabout here will do a comeback. I don't know, but for now it's going to be a boring normal junction. So, but there's going to be a lot of parking lots around this station. It's going to be serving as a park and ride. People from the region and Millau would drive here and take the TGV. They would probably have pretty long-term parking, like, or at least like the whole day. You would park your car here the whole day or the whole weekend or something, and then go into France, or going to France. You are in France, but going to Paris, or go down to Barcelona or something. Which is what I imagine this TGV line would connect. Barcelona and Paris. I realize I haven't decided, but yeah, now about this time I decide I'm going to use these parking lot networks, which aren't functional, but I'm going to make them functional by adding parking lot buildings on top of them. Speaking about those, I did go ahead and add a few new mods recently. One of the mods is Customize It. It's basically a mod that lets you change settings and values for all buildings, and the main reason for getting that mod is so that I can remove the tourism attractiveness of these parking lots, because I was getting way too many camper vans just going from one parking lot to another, visiting them. Like, it was getting tedious and dumb, and I just didn't like seeing camper vans like really just all over my parking lots, driving around back and forth all day long for no apparent reason. So I got the Customized mod for that. I should also say that I got a Smoother Shadows mod, and you will see it in the live play. This mod is going to be a game changer for me, because I was having very dark shadows. I didn't know that Smooth Shadows, which is a very, very, very old mod, I didn't know that it still was functional. So I'm extremely happy to use it and see that it still works. So huge shout out to Ami Polizeifunk again for recommending me getting that mod. And yeah, you've seen me do these kind of parking lots before in Millau as well, by the way, but might as well talk a little bit about it. I'm using the network and just placing these buildings on top of them. The thickness of the network is, I've concluded, is exactly 82%. So I'm stretching them to 82%. I'm not really stretching them. I guess I'm unstretching them, compressing them to 82% of their original thickness, and they match perfectly with vanilla parking lot buildings. So that's what I was doing there. I mean, eventually this parking lot might change. I did play around with some buildings here as well, but none of these stay. You'll see the final air quotes buildings in the live play, but I'm still not entirely sure, because this place might see changes when we eventually connect it with trams. Like, we might have to remove some of the parking, move some over, reconfigure it. Don't get too attached with the station is what I'm saying. Whatever we're gonna do, it's going to be great. We're not gonna do it if it's not great, but yeah, don't get too attached with it. I did like this idea, though, to end the sort of one of the roads with a cul-de-sac, like just make it larger with node controller like that. That made me happy. Yeah, nice. And from here we're transitioning into the final build of the time lapse, right? Which is going to be, I'm so excited to share this once again. Like, I've done this so many times, but it's going to be a bridge. It's going to be a monorail arch bridge over the Tano River here, and it's gonna turn out amazing. You'll probably see this. This is probably gonna be visible in the thumbnail. Might be the reason you clicked on this video, even this viaduct here. I'm really happy with how it turns out. I have a separate video, a very old video, on basically how to do these kind of bridges. It's pretty much the same technique as I've been using for years now, but I might have changed it a little bit since then. There's of course a few new mods and a few new techniques that make things a little bit easier. This bridge is a bit complicated also because it's actually curved. It's not a straight track, but it doesn't really stop us from doing this stuff. It just requires us to think a little bit further. I did play around with the idea of having it be basically a through arch bridge where the tracks go, or where the arch goes both above and below the tracks. It's my best way to describe that, but I ended up having the arch completely below the tracks. I think it fits this valley much better, or at least for now. We might change that either if we get inspired and play around with it. It might change, who knows, but for now I think this is a very cool bridge and I'm very happy with how it turned out. So I'm using Move It heavily here to sort of just adjust these nodes and create something that looks like an arch. I'm very much eyeballing it, but I'm moving it symmetrically, so I'm moving the nodes on the left and the right side together synchronized, I guess. So even though it's curved and the bridge is sloped at the same time, the bridge arch should be symmetrical in a way. Even though it kind of isn't. It's weird, but it turns out good. We can't really argue with the results. I mean, we can, but I'm not gonna argue with the results. I love it. So I am currently using the one-way monorail track for the main arch. I will upgrade it to a two-way monorail track later, because that will let me hide those annoying unconnected notifications, and yeah, it's just gonna become a little bit more bulkier. It's just gonna look a little bit more robust. I did get a little bit of crashes while I was doing this. Sometimes when I do these very move it intensive sort of builds with bridges and like very many, like a lot of nodes in the same area, I get the game to start lagging intensely and sometimes even crash, like some kind of memory leak happens. And I think I did experience one around here, but it didn't really mean I lost a lot. I had, fortunately, I had auto-saving enabled and I lost like a few minutes. But there will be a cut at some point in the video where I sort of jump forward a little bit because I didn't want to show all the stuff again. I don't know if it's a new development, but something I did also use on this arch eventually is I did use node controller to smooth out the nodes. You can get smoothness in this arch in several ways. You can get it by basically having an insane amount of nodes on it. But in this case, I think we have maybe only something like maybe like 16 or so nodes, who knows, like maybe less. And we get the smoothness instead by using node controller and setting the nodes to be the bend type. Basically that smooths smooths the nodes out without having to add more nodes. Oh, and here I went and found a little bit of a hidden pillar under the main viaduct that was left over from something, who knows. I'm using some keys here as foundations for the arch, basically, or like anchoring the arch. I think anchoring is the good word here. Good word is a good word. Anchoring the arch into the mountain. And you can start to see like how good this art looks. It's just amazing. I've also added a bunch more nodes on the train track. I don't entirely remember why I did that. I don't think I needed that in retrospect, but I had some plan with that. And but eventually they will, a bunch of them will be removed anyway, since we don't really need them for the pillars. So the final part of this bridge is basically doing the vertical, how do you even call it? The vertical supports. This is also probably the trickiest part of building monorail bridges like this. I am using the two-way monorail track, the one without the pylons, because we now have a version without the pylons, which is great. But I am basically using this and copying it into place, making sure the rotation matches. I match the rotation using the pillars I have to the side. Oh, now I remember why I did so many nodes. Yes, because that means I can use the pillars as a guide to rotate these vertical monorail pieces. It's, oh my goodness, this is so weird and complicated. I don't think this is going to make sense for anybody else watching this, but everything has a purpose apparently. I kind of forgot about it, but you know, everything has a purpose here. We're using this temporary bridge to the side as an alignment guide, so we can rotate the vertical supports how we want them. I believe we had our crash and we're past that now. I'm using the node controller to smooth out the arch, and it's starting to look really, really good. The ends will we'll just change the node type of the ends to make it look more archy, I guess. I do believe I also go ahead and duplicate the arch itself so that it's doubled up to get a more sort of structure, like a more structurally sound bridge, I suppose. It's a little bit slim as it is, but with just using one monorail track, so. But here we go. Look at that. That's so good. And this is the end of the time lapse today, so I will see you guys in the live play. So welcome back to the live play. I have gone and done a few things that I don't show in the time lapse, but I'll try to go through the whole sort of line from the start to finish, and like we'll talk about the stuff maybe in a more clear and organized manner that's easier to follow and you know, understand. try to explain some of the decisions. I won't try to defend the decision to speed everything up by 400%. That was kind of dumb in retrospect, but as usual, like, these things take longer to record than I imagine, and yeah, and stuff happens. But here we are at the one of the ends. Basically, it is actually it's an outside connection that I just sort of put inside inside of a map. So the way this works is I would just use a, I mean, preferably the normal train track. I have to have it the unmodded normal, and then you can move this. This is a known old trick. You can move it however you want, and it will still function as an outside connection. So that's what I did. I've also extended this outside connection piece to roughly like 18 units long, so that it can handle longer trains without completely breaking. And then I've used this road tunnel entrance here. I'll see if I can copy it to the side. It's basically just a road, but it has this nice arched shape. Arch shape. And I believe I used some node controller trickery on it as well to, yeah, like compressing it to 75% thickness so it matches the train better, train line. I think that just looks better. Since this is the outside connection piece, you actually see people spawning here, which I'm not a huge fan of. Also, the trains stop here and pick them up as if it were a station. Could work better, but you know what? It's fine. Oh, let's see. Oh, we're actually waiting for the other train. That means these. This is the bypass train that just goes through the map. The TGV Midi Direct. I need to change the name. I have some better suggestions for names, I think. Yeah. I've also done a lot of IMT work for the entire line. Like, for example, let's talk about that. The main trick I've done is I've used something called the shopping cart shelter, right? And I'll try to raise it up so you can see what it is. It's basically this shopping cart shelter prop that you all know and love from the vanilla game. I don't know where it exists, but it's a vanilla asset. And I've just used it as a prop line to yeah, as fake sleepers basically. For it to work as fake sleepers, I need to have a gravel texture that overlaps the original sleepers. So I also do that, I guess. And now I ruined that one, but it's fine. We can sort that out later. Let's follow a train here along. I've also done some things that kind of looks like there's key walls, but there's not actually key walls. These are pavement, like sort of boxes to the side to make the network fit a little bit into the train, because otherwise this is all a bridge network and it kind of does a little, like, it doesn't really mesh that well with the train. I thought this was a good solution for now. Might update it as we go, but I've also gone in and like added details like this, like small pieces of key where you have a transition between elevated and ground level, so that's nice. In many cases, I've also gone in and added more pillars to make the viaducts more structurally viable. I think is a better term than the one I used at the time. Structurally viable, I like that word. Yeah. And there's the first large tunnel, goes under the Larsac plateau, and it pops out here, just next to the big viaduct. So it's the baby viaduct and the parent viaduct. I don't know if that's how viaducts are formed, but you know, it does the same things. The tunnel entrance has pretty much the same IMT thing set up. I often copy and paste these. I'm actually going to do that right now before I forget. Copy markings, select the whole thing and copy markings. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to paste markings, and voila, it's reset. Great. Oof. Yeah, so the zoom. I really love seeing these networks just completely cut through the landscape, but still in a natural way that sort of makes sense. There was a small natural depression here between these two hills that I kind of used. I wanted to use it, so it just became a part of the alignment automatically. And here you can see it connects over to our magnificent arch viaduct, or arch bridge, or span. The one that spans the river and the... This view here, where you get like the lower trains, the upper trains, you can get the cars on the highway and on this national road at the same time. Oh, it's just so nice. You can also see that I did stack these two networks in the height. In the height, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but there's two network stacks to make it a little bit thicker. It's just a good idea. These vertical supports are actually not perfectly vertical. They're almost vertical, because if I make them perfectly vertical, they kind of break. So that's a compromise, but you can hardly notice it from most angles. And besides, when you're looking at it from this angle, it becomes weird anyway, so it's a little bit like you have to have imagination. There are better solutions, there are maybe better solutions, but this is one that I like to use anyway, so that's the one you get, I guess. And we proceed on to into like a mini viaduct and another tunnel. As I said, the trains do slow down in the tunnels. I don't really know why. It's kind of weird. It's like TMP doesn't, or like the speed limits. Even though the speed limits are supposed to be unlimited, or what does it say? I think it says unlimited, but even though it has this no speed limit marking, it doesn't seem to quite work inside the tunnel. So I will show how I set up the speed limits for a train station though, because you can click here, edit lane speed limits, and then you can see you have different speed limits on the inner and outer tracks. So that's what I did to get that effect. And of course also lane connectors here to make sure that they don't cross over at these nodes here, because these are actually nodes. I've also done some detailing with the stations. I've used IMT to add these pavement fillers, basically, as platform extensions. I think that's very neat. Can I show it? Maybe, yeah. Yeah, it looks more complicated than it is, but basically it's just like moving these points around and creating new fillers where it feels appropriate to put new fillers. So I encourage you to move these points around and play with what you can do. Do I remember what the distance was? Maybe it was 8.4. I don't remember. 8.4, yeah. Whew. I also played around with adding these walls here as a sort of sound barrier. They don't look the best, to be honest, but because of how the stretched out texture, but I think they're fine enough. We could do this with props or something else instead, but I like the idea of a concrete wall here. So the idea is that these guys block the sound and the otherwise kind of almost scary effect of a very fast train just passing by the station while you're standing at the platform. So that's something I've seen on real TGV stations and other train stations for that matter, but especially TGV stations. So here you can see the current layout of the station as well, with some of the parking lots you saw. There's a bit more trees, a bit more like foliage detailing and stuff like that around it. There's a nice extra node controlled path here leading up to the platform. This office building has spliced together two of them, and this, which I believe is a commercial building, or if it's an office building. It's a commercial building, but do I need these? No. I think they add a little bit to the area though, but as I said as well, this might change. A lot of this might change as we figure out how to connect and how to build up this area around the station. But I'm pretty happy with it right now anyway. I've also used these what do you call it? The shopping cart shelter props to create fake sleepers for this large connection node as well. And I believe I also used a Bob mod to remove the default catenaries from these networks, and or catenary, the gantries for the catenaries, or maybe the catenaries, I don't know, these gantries anyway, and just place my own with IMT. So these are actually IMT placed props as well. Just makes them spaced a little bit neater. And if we continue, here we come to the most suspicious or the most sus curve in the whole network. I think the radius of this curve is like something like maybe between 1,000 and 2,000 meters, which is not really great if you want to zoom past at speeds of 300 kilometers per hour. I think this would not allow like the max speed of the TGV anyway. But you know what, might change, we might figure it out, or we might just accept, you know what, it's a game and it's fine, let's move on. I like the way it looks though. It's not too intrusive on the skyline. It doesn't pop up. I was a bit worried that it would pop up too much into the sky, but I feel like it's acceptable. My main concern right now is like, I don't know, I'm being such a nerd about this, but like noise pollution. If trains go past here decently fast, it will basically, everybody in the town will hear it at once. It will be like a sonic boom kind of effect. Not really, but it would be very loud, and that's my biggest concern right now. But I don't know, it's just a game, I should just accept, it's fine, you know. Here we're going into the segment, or the section of the alignment where there is like tunnels, bridge tunnels, like very intermittently. So there's a small tunnel here, a small viaduct, some ground section, another tunnel, some ground section. Here we caught the train, nice. See if we can do a cinematics like following a train for some stretch anyway. Of course it doesn't really work going through the tunnels, but that would be fun. And here we have another train. Nice. You can kind of see it slows down before it enters the tunnel. If anybody knows a fix for that, I would love to hear it. I have used advanced vehicle options to both ban most vehicles, so that I can be very deliberate about what vehicles spawn. So there's only going to be this kind of TGV train on that line actually right now, but I can't seem to, even though I have set the max speed here and there's no speed limit, they seem to speed up on the above ground segments but slow down in the tunnels. So if anybody knows a fix for that, I'd love to hear it. And some more small viaducts, ground levels. I've done some terraforming as well, obviously. Also, there were a lot of trees that I had to delete because the placement using network multitool didn't really take into account the trees, so I did have to adjust for that. But that was so boring and uninteresting that I decided to cut all of that out. Here, by the almost when we reach the other map edge, I have included a treat. This part has seen some changes, and most notably, I have created a custom arch bridge using the avenue, the 4-lane avenue bridge, this guy, and used node controller to make it thinner. Like 35% matches the rail pretty good, and I've also extended it to basically terminate at a small segment here, so that you can see there's no sort of guardrail interfering with the tracks by doing it this way. So it's a bit complicated, it's not really necessary, but I think it looks sick. So in the good way, of course, I think it looks really good. So just a little bit of an extra treat. You know, I like my bridges, and yeah, and that's just going to be the story the story of me, the story of my life. And here we are approaching the map edge, and the same kind of situation here. Except this map edge actually is at the map edge, so... Yeah. Oof. With that, that demonstration of the TGV system, I'm gonna like do a short presentation of like what's next for Millau. I put out a poll on my YouTube. You might still be able to vote on it. It's not a binding poll. I have reserved the right to not follow it if I want to do something else. But basically, it's about what areas to develop next. And the options that I put in the poll have been to build the proper train station. That will be a custom train station in this general area. It will be a build of like the first city blocks, the first proper European style city blocks with the red terracotta roofs and such, you know. That's, I think, currently the leading option in the poll. The other options are a military base, which I've hinted at a few times in earlier videos, but it's going to be in this general area, based on a real-life military base on the Larsac Plateau, and my own experiences, because I used to be a soldier in the army doing military stuff, so I have a lot to say about that, and a lot of ideas, and I think it would be a very cool build to try. And also a small regional airport that probably has some kind of history together with the military base. It probably has some kind of relation to it. So these builds kind of go together, but they are separate builds and definitely separate episodes. I'm considering the military base would be a separate, like maybe even a two-part build because of the large live fire exercise range that I would like to add to it. It's a good way to use the plateau, because I've been struggling a little bit with how to make use of it, but that's my plans. Go to the community tab of my YouTube channel if you want to vote, and I guess comment on this video if you have any ideas and stuff like that. These are just my ideas right now. Who knows? Maybe something else happens. I am excited to be done with this video. This is my first video in a very long time of Millau. I'm really excited about the build. I wanted to do a TGV line like this forever. I'm super happy with how it turned out, and yeah, things are looking up. I'm excited to do more videos this summer. Don't expect too much for June and early July, but I definitely want to do more videos of Millau this summer. So yes, if you liked this video, if you want more and all that stuff, and if you haven't already, like, subscribe, comment, share, all that stuff. You know the deal. I will see you in the next video. Have a great day, guys.
Dans les collines, le temps serpente, sous le ciel bleu, la brise nous tente. Millau se dévoile, perle du midi, où l'histoire et la nature se lient. Oh Millau, dans tes bras on se perd, oh majestueux, cœur de lumière au creux de tes vallées. Le monde s'éveille, Millau, douce mélodie des merveilles. Les viaducs touchent les cieux étoilés, l'ombre des causses sur les prés dorés. Les parapentes dansent au vent, libres comme l'âme des habitants. Oh Millau, dans tes bras on se perd, bon majestueux, cœur de lumière au creux de tes vallées. Le monde s'éveille, Millau, douce mélodie des merveilles. Dans tes bras on se perd, oh majestueux, cœur de lumière au creux de tes vallées. Le monde s'éveille, Millau, douce mélodie des merveilles. Oh Millau, dans tes bras on se perd, oh majestueux. mélodie des mers.